us today for today's webinar, Set Up Your Search Campaign for Success. My name is Heidi Raub, and I'm the Director of Enrollment Marketing at TWG+. We're a full-service marketing agency based here in Austin, Texas, specializing exclusively in higher education. Today, I'm joined by Rob Fintner, Director of Admissions at Western Oregon University. Western Oregon has been a TWG Plus partner institution for several years, and during that time, we've had the opportunity to really perfect our approach to their student search. Our approach to student search with Western Oregon is currently comprised of an analysis-based name buy and targeted email, direct mail, and digital marketing campaigns. Today, we will be discussing the elements that have contributed to the success of these campaigns and sharing some takeaways that can be applied to other institutions as well. We've reserved some time for questions at the end, so if you would like to send them in to us through the chat feature, we will get to them. At this time, I would like to welcome Rob and kick things off.
Good morning, everyone.
Rob, good morning. Thank you again for being here. So tell us a little bit about Western Oregon and what makes you unique.
Sure. So Western Oregon, we are one of the public universities in the state. We are located roughly 15 miles west of Salem, the state capital, and roughly an hour south of Portland in terms of, a major population base in our state. And we are the oldest public university in the state. Essentially, our roots can be traced back to essentially being started as a normal school. So our foundation has been teacher education. I believe that we have a national reputation when it comes to our undergraduate and graduate teacher education programs. Programs that are somewhat unique to Western. We actually have two undergraduate degrees in American Sign Language, so American Sign Language Studies, as well as American Sign Language Interpreting. So I think we have a national draw there. And then some of our other popular undergraduate programs would include criminal justice, business, psychology, just to name a few. Majority of our students are undergraduates. We primarily pull about 77% of our students are from the state of Oregon. And then we've seen growth in terms of our non-resident population. We are a pretty significant player, I think, in the Western Undergraduate Exchange or WUI program. So we have some folks maybe that are joining the call today that are very familiar with WUI and may be very active in the WUI program. So I think when I first started about 20 years ago in the Office of Admissions, we were anywhere from 95% of our students were from the state of Oregon. And so we've seen a change there in terms of just where our students are coming from, that now we're at 77% of our students are from the state of Oregon. So we've had more of a active presence recruiting in WUI states.
Perfect. Thank you. So coming from that perspective, this year, as we are partnering on our student search, I know that we have discussed some particular goals that Western Oregon has had for that student search. Would you like to articulate those?
Yeah, I think for us as a mid-sized public institution that we are surrounded by some other institutions that I would describe have a national presence for a variety of different reasons. So I think part of that is just to get the word out about Western Oregon, and we never make assumptions that everyone in the state knows who we are. That still happens from time to time. A lot of folks will say, "Well, I've heard of Oregon State, but where is Western Oregon exactly?" Or I've never heard of you. And so we don't necessarily want to be that best kept secret. We joke about that on campus. So I think part of that is reinforcing our presence in the state of Oregon, having that market share is important to us. I referenced WUI earlier, but we've seen growth in feeder WUI states, whether that's California, Hawaii, Washington. We'd like to expand that presence. We've been spending a little time even in Guam. Recently joined the Western Undergraduate Exchange program, so we hope to see some growth there. And then, I think we'll continue to look at our market and see, are there new opportunities? Is there growth in certain states? outside the state of Oregon, and I think what we can offer financially at this point really kind of lies within the WUI states, but there could be opportunities outside of those WUI states, but that's where we stand right now.
Fantastic, thank you. So in preparation for your search, we did perform an analysis of your historical data to determine the best direction for the campaign. And one of the key elements that we are looking at is your audience. So let's talk a little bit about your search by and what we were looking for based on that analysis.
Sure, and I think something I will share in the past, I think we were, guilty of what I would describe as the shotgun approach, that you would just buy thousands of names and hope that that students would move forward with becoming completing an inquiry form, reaching out to our office. A lot of that was just kind of, we made some assumptions and we hope that students would respond in some way and ultimately would apply and matriculate. So I think we had to be a little smarter. I think many institutions obviously have moved that direction, being smarter, and there are some financial limitations too with budgets. But that historical data piece has been very important, is for TWG to really mine that information, look at where are we pulling our students historically, and are there also new opportunities to expand our presence in certain markets. So really mining that data is very important. And I'll be quite honest, is that with an institution of our size, my staff doesn't really have the time that we need assistance with that. So that's something we really value about TWG, and then having that predictive model for folks from TWG to come back and to say, here's what we found based on your historical data, where you should be continuing just to reinforce your presence, whether it's in the state of Oregon and WUI states. Here's some opportunity markets as well, and then having that consultation piece, those conference calls and email exchanges are absolutely crucial.
Absolutely, thank you. And I think that's really something that we pride ourselves on, is the ability to work with our partners to look at that historical data, see what's working, what hasn't worked, where are your areas of opportunity, utilize a predictive model, and then really consult with you on that list to make sure that everybody is on that same page for the list by knowing, what areas are kind of your bread and butter and what areas are some areas for expansion. So it's been a fun opportunity with Western Oregon for sure. So once we had our search audience in place, we worked on the creative elements to attract your audience. We wanted to encourage them to read the messaging and then ultimately convert into inquiries. We focused on making sure that the campaign was less traditional and definitively woo. That included a conversational tone, a sense of humor, photography to highlight the beautiful Western Oregon region, and an overall look and feel that made students take notice. So Rob, from an admissions perspective, what elements were most important to you as we were partnering to design this campaign?
Well, I think something that we tried to play upon is that we think, Oregon in general is a beautiful state. When folks visit us, especially outside of the state of Oregon, I think they're always impressed in terms of just the beauty of the state as well as our campus. We may be the oldest public university in the state of Oregon, but we have some great new facilities, whether that's academic or recreational facilities, residence halls, et cetera. So I think once again, that we don't always have that national brand or presence compared to some of our fellow institutions. So I think for students and we know for family members or whoever's supporting the process, to get a sense of, okay, it is a beautiful area. It appears to be a beautiful campus, so to kind of pull them in that way, I think is important in terms of academic offerings and opportunities, kind of that aha moment that I didn't know you offered certain programs, but also I think having a little sense of humor, not being stuffy. I think that we can all be guilty of that. We get into that routine of using some of the same terminology, tone, and so I think having kind of an outside perspective for the folks at TWG to have fun with that, and we really allowed TWG to run with that, to have fun with it, that we didn't necessarily want to be stuffy, that we wanted to be relevant to our high school audience and to really grab a student's attention. And so that's something that I've appreciated about our partnership is once again getting that outside perspective. We do have a strategic marketing communications department. Even the director have shared, yes, it's good to get that outside perspective that we can be guilty of kind of doing the same things over again, not always maybe losing a little bit of our creative energy over the course of time. And so getting that outside perspective and getting to know who we are as an institution is very important. And I always like to reference one of our emails that I think had quite a few clicks. Students were reading. Opening was that one of our buildings is haunted, and that may sound a little silly, but even when students came to visit campus, they referenced that. We have students that come back from tours and will reference that as a highlight. It's surprising what can catch the eye of a student and what may draw them to an institution.
Fantastic, thank you. So what advice would you share with another institution that is maybe a little bit hesitant about going in that direction, about doing something, anything less than a real traditional type of a campaign? How would you help them to kind of take that plunge? What would be your advice?
Well, I think you have to obviously get buy-in from campus, whether that, in my case, direct supervisor who was definitely on board that, they indicated it's time that we need to get that outside perspective, get fresh eyes on things is very important. I think you do have to take that risk. And then I think also we were very fortunate that, our president, it was a complete buy-in there as well. Maybe that's the benefit of a campus of our size to be able to have those conversations, have access to our president and the senior leadership team to have that buy-in from campus. And so, those were ongoing conversations prior to partnering with TWG is we need that fresh perspective and maybe do things a little bit differently. And so my supervisor said, we could be a little edgy. We can have some fun. I think we need to do that thinking about, who our audience is. This really is targeting high school students, whether it's seniors, as well as campaign for our younger students to grab their attention. I think sometimes you have to be a little edgy and have some fun, and yet you can still have those elements to where it's going to keep the faculty happy, other folks happy in terms of some of the tone could be a little serious, or information is very relevant and pertinent in terms of academic programs, scholarship opportunities as well. But I think you have to catch their eye and have them take that next step to open that email, to read through it, that call to action, to take that next step, to fill out a inquiry or to calculate your scholarship once again.
Fantastic, thank you. We've really had a lot of fun with your campaign. It's always great to be able to do something that is outside the ordinary, to really create something that is just so unique and relevant to your particular institution. So it's been a great campaign to work on. So talking about the elements of that particular campaign, one of the pieces that we incorporated was a scholarship calculator, which allows prospective students to calculate the amount of scholarship dollars that they may qualify for based on their self-reported responses. Can you discuss the value of that scholarship calculator to your prospective students, and in what way it may have impacted the campaign, or really just from an admission standpoint, has this been a valuable tool in talking with prospective students?
Yeah, I think it's a good conversation piece. I think that as we talked prior to today's webinar, I think it does generate conversations with students. They may call in and say, well, I've calculated my scholarship, and specifically for the presidential program, but are there other opportunities? What about financial aid? Is there a specific deadline in terms of aid opportunities? So it's definitely a conversation starter. So we do have students who will take that next step to follow up with an email, phone call. We also hear from parents. We know that it's not just a student-driven decision process, that parents are very involved, and some parents are more involved than others. And so we get those phone calls in terms of, sometimes it is clarification about a scholarship amount that's been calculated, but also typically what I find is, what are those other opportunities. And for some students, they will go to our financial aid homepage and be able to locate information about scholarship opportunities. But often it's, what are those other opportunities? And so I think for us, it's been a positive in terms of having those conversations via phone and email. And we know the financial piece, affordability is very important as well. So I think in terms of kind of a call to action item, that is crucial.
Perfect. We've seen really, really good success with the scholarship calculator. It's a piece that, we know, and I'll touch on reporting a bit, but we know that students are clicking those links. We know that they are trying out their scholarships, that they want to know, they want to see what am I eligible for? So we've been very pleased at how well those scholarship calculators have been received, and we're glad that it's a piece that allows your admission team to be able to have that conversation with prospective students and with their parents. So another part of the communication flow of this campaign, we've allowed students to opt into text messaging to stay in the loop. So after they opt in, students automatically receive the first text in a series of text messages. What value do you see in incorporating text messaging, and how have you seen it impact your communication with prospective students?
I think maybe it was roughly, it could be 5 years ago, or maybe it's been a little bit longer than that. I think there was always mixed feelings about texting students, whether it was at perhaps a NACAC conference or for our regional association, PNACAC. Maybe I'll use the descriptor. It seemed creepy at one time, right? There seemed to be, I think institutions were a little reluctant, and then I think there were some institutions that decided to take that next step and maybe take that risk and begin sending texts. And I think it's become more commonplace and I think accepted by students. That's what I hear now, whether it's a student panel, webinars, other information that we can all access, that I think it's become common practice. And I think for students that have expressed an interest, that they raise their hand to say, I'm interested in Western Oregon University, or I've been admitted, that I think text messages are very acceptable. And so that's something that I think we were on board with that, obviously, that I think it's important in terms of that communication, that touch point with students, and the fact that they can opt out is very important. And whether that is text messages or with an email campaign through your CRM, is to give students the opportunity to go ahead and opt out if need be. But I think if a student is interested in your institution, they'll continue to read those messages, and if there's that call to action, to take that call to action. So I think it's very important to us as a touch point and to keep students within our comm plan.
Absolutely. So in everything that we are doing with your search campaign, we are keeping tabs through our internal system. So one of those key elements has been the ability just to monitor the performance every step of the way. And TWG Plus provides our partners access to their campaign dashboard, and you're able to log in and monitor your progress towards your goals. In addition, we internally are always monitoring your campaigns, and we review performance and make changes as necessary. How has this campaign transparency been beneficial to you, to your team? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, we can see in terms of the email drops, which specific emails are having success in terms of just the open rate that students are clicking through. I think that's important. Potentially, if an email is not getting the traction that we'd like, I think TWG has always been very responsive in terms of making some adjustments or tweaking as need be. I think also for me it's communicating with my supervisor in terms of we've made an investment with TWG and what are the results. The folks are asking that question. So I think that that accountability piece is very important in terms of the senior leadership team here at Western Oregon in terms of our campaign and work with TWG. We can also see in terms of just which students are really engaging the campaign, and it's nice, for lack of a description, kind of that scoring system to see that students that really engage, those are students that we should obviously be reaching out to and continuing that communication. They've raised their hand and they've demonstrated interest in Western Oregon. Are there students that we need to do a little more work with in terms of trying to engage them as well? And then I think you can also kind of see that correlation when there is an email drop, if we see an influx in terms of other activity, whether it's phone calls or emails, we can even see that correlation as well. So I think that's something that's very important to me as a director of admissions.
Absolutely. You know, I definitely agree. I am a big data person myself, and I really do live in our system, and it really is great to be able to see that immediate response, to know how the campaigns are performing, and then for us to be able to have that conversation about, you know, what's working, what could be tweaked. It's really beneficial, and I think that just partnering with you and knowing that your team is responsive and that we're able to just have those conversations, it's made for a great campaign. So on that note, I think one of the elements that has made the campaign such a success just really has been this true partnership between TWG Plus and Western Oregon University. And I know we've touched on that a bit throughout the conversation, but what are your thoughts on the partnership, Rob? I mean, we've worked together for several years at this point, and could you share a little bit of history on that and just really how the partnership has impacted you?
Yeah, I think what I truly value about TWG is really getting to know Western Oregon as a partner and having those really visits to campus, the on-site visits, is really crucial. And not just meeting with someone such as myself, but across campus. And so I know that your colleagues have met with our president to get his perspective, and he's someone that is relatively new to campus, but his thoughts in terms of where we are as an institution, where we'd like to be. Meeting with folks from student affairs, our faculty from athletics, current students is spending a day and a half, 2 days on campus, just meeting with folks, taking notes, letting essentially our campus community tell our story. And so I would say TWG is not guilty of being cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all for clients. It's that you really get to know us as a partner, and I really see it as a partnership. So that's something that I really value. I think also you're just very receptive to feedback. If we say no, I'm not quite sure about this particular email in terms of content. Maybe that's a little too edgy, or it's not going to work for us. I don't feel comfortable. Then you'll always go back to the drawing board, come back with a variation. We'll say, okay, we're comfortable with what you're presenting now. And so taking that feedback and I think kind of adapting and making changes as need be is important to be responsive to us as a partner. And I think that we're touching base throughout the year in terms of how a campaign is performing. And there's been times where things are going really well, or this email is just not getting the read rate that we like. Let's make some changes, or let's try this for the second phase of the campaign. So once again, being really responsive and looking at the data is very important. And then I think full disclosure for folks that are participating today. In terms of some of our key publications, our travel piece, our fare brochure and view book, that we turned that over to TWG, and they've done a great job in terms of just the look, the feel, the tone. We've had nothing but great responses from prospective students, admitted students, high school counselors, community college advisors, staff, even members of our board of trustees. Like, we love these publications, that we needed to get that outside perspective. And even folks, once again, that work in our strategic marketing communication. So yeah, it's good, Rob, to have this exercise, to have that outside perspective, to work with a partner outside of campus, just to get that fresh perspective and look. And so we've been absolutely thrilled with the view book, the travel piece, but also as part of this campaign, we've had some postcards that we developed with TWG that we send to prospective students students who maybe have a incomplete admission application, as well as our admitted students. So that's crucial to our comp plan.
Well, thank you. We sincerely appreciate your thoughts on that. And as I've said, we have truly enjoyed, working with your team. You are great to work with, and I think that it's been an opportunity for us to, to do something that is exciting and new, and just like I said, that's very, very Western Oregon. It wouldn't, it's not a piece that we could pick up and move to another institution, nor would we, but it is definitively something that defines your institution, and we've really loved working with you. And so I think
there's two other things I want to share too. Is I think your colleagues have always been great about, Rob, we do have another client that is trying this. Have you thought about this? And so not necessarily revealing trade secrets, but I think the TWG team has always been very good about just, have you thought about this? And there's, we joke, say no cost for this, just some something for you to chew on or think about. So always making recommendations or suggestions about other opportunities that and things that we could even just do on our own. So that's something that I've appreciated. And I think also TWG is very responsive in terms of what is your budget? We're going to work with your budget. In full disclosure, for Western Oregon, we don't have a recruitment or marketing budget that's going to compare to the University of Oregon. And so I think you're very responsive in terms of here's what we can offer Western Oregon. Here's what you're essentially projecting in terms of your budget, in terms of what you can allocate to TWG. And so working with that, making adjustments if need be. And so talking about different options each year. And that's something that I appreciate too, is you're willing to work with our budget.
Well, thank you. We do, we really do have some great people on staff who are incredibly creative, who are very dedicated to making something that is going to work for you, that we're going to create a campaign that's going to be successful, but it's not going to blow your budget. That's very important to us as partners and just as humans, that we want you to be successful, and we want to be the team that's going to help you to be able to do that. And so it's been really great. So I think looking at the pieces that we have discussed in terms of, what has made the search campaign particularly successful, knowing your goals, knowing what it is that you are looking to achieve, making sure that they are attainable, but also having a very clear direction on where you're looking to go. Knowing your audience, as we discussed, knowing that you're increasing your regional recognition, but also where the bulk of your students are still currently coming from Oregon, but that you're growing within the WUI state. So knowing who you're talking to and making educated decisions about where and when to expand that audience, and it makes a huge difference. Talking about your messaging, making it consistent and on brand. We are a marketing agency, and we absolutely recognize the importance of always sounding like yourself, that a message coming from Western Oregon should always sound like Western Oregon, and being consistent with the look and the feel so that students are comfortable with everything that they are receiving, and that they are always getting that same type of voice and imagery, so that it's the same impression. We want to provide value. There's no reason to send a search campaign that is not going to be results oriented. We want to create a campaign that is absolutely going to work for you. And the way we do that is by consistently measuring the results, utilizing our dashboard, always looking at your analytics, making sure that we know everything that is going on in your campaign, and really keeping in touch with our clients and examining those results, making changes as necessary. I think that Those are really key elements that any particular institution can use for a successful search campaign, and certainly what we're doing to help ensure that Western Oregon is going to have a great year this year. So that being said, it looks like we've got a couple questions coming in here. So let's see. Rob, someone would like to know, did you get any pushback internally when you were initially creating that campaign? Was there anybody on your staff that maybe was not in favor of that particular messaging?
So I think we were fortunate in terms of, I think across campus that folks were very supportive. I think some of the concerns that we had internally, and even some of my staff in terms of the counseling staff, was the scholarship calculator. Would that open up conversations in terms of is that all you offer? Because it does focus primarily on our presidential scholarship program, which is for first-time freshmen. But I know there's some concerns about that. Is that if a student calculates their scholarship, so that's really it. I'm just getting only this. Maybe Western Oregon is not an option for me, and we found that's not the case. It seems to push students to look at our other scholarship opportunities, to engage my staff by phone or email, or occasionally we're at a school visit where, I got an email from Western and I did calculate my scholarship and I have some follow-up questions. So I think there was some concerns about that. And, in full disclosure, at one time for our presidential scholarship program, essentially what we call the our matrix or grid, we didn't make that public. And there's a whole backstory to that, but I think we try to be more transparent in terms of our opportunities. And I think for students, their families, as well as I think even our high school partners, and even for that matter, our community college partners when it comes to transfer opportunities, I think they really appreciate the fact that we're trying to be as transparent as possible.
Sure, absolutely. And actually that dovetails very nicely into our next question. So the question is, are you looking at transfer student enrollment in terms of search strategies?
For us, I think I go kind of back and forth on that one. I know there are some opportunities that exist, and I know for transfers that is a completely different population. So I think that's something that we're open to that. And if folks are not aware, with the state of Oregon, we have what's called the Oregon Promise. And so for our students in the state coming out of high school, they have some opportunities, and that could include spending up to 2 years at one of the 17 community colleges, and essentially having most of their costs addressed. And so it makes it very challenging for myself, my colleagues at the public universities, and I guess the private sector for that matter. But in terms of the four-year institutions, in terms of here's a great financial incentive for a student to start at an Oregon community college. And so we hope to see as early as possible in terms of an influx of transfer students. And obviously this would be Oregon transfer students, but I know our president has made transfer students an important priority. I think many institutions are, but I think that's something that is at the forefront for me is opportunities in terms of transfer search. Through our CRM, full disclosure, we use Radius. We have our campaign for prospective and admitted transfer students. But in terms of getting our name out there in front of more transfer students, that's something I think about on a daily basis. So absolutely.
All right. Well, perfect. I think that is all of the questions that we have received. But Rob, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to tune in and to hear all about search strategies between TWG Plus and Western Oregon University. This webinar is being recorded, and so you will receive a link with the recording shortly after. But again, thank you all for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.